Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of Simulating Civilization in Yeeps. Alright, we're going to do a quick recap of what happened last time. So, Red did some more colonization over, upriver. Right, we had new civilizations emerge. Purple, we had mint, we had rose, we have light mocha, and then we have amber and dark brown all the way over there. Right, they were up in the north. We had some wars between, like, rose, mint, and amber. And purple did a lot of expanding, right? They went to war with rose and mint. Rose lost a lot of land. Mint expanded. But then, right, we had a great war over here. Right, we had countries like teal, brown, red, turquoise, and blue fighting, like, olive, guacamole, light purple, midnight, light blue, hello, light yellow, steel, and then we had some new countries form like dark purple and pink all the way over there. Alright, so now we're gonna see what happens today. Wahoo! Alright, I forgot to add a capital here last time. Honestly, I'm going to put the capital right here, along the river. Alright, so yeah, this is how the map was looking. The Great War is over. Alright, Red and his allies have lost the war. Borders have shifted and changed. But yeah, a lot has happened. And let's continue on. Right, so Red lost colonies up there. Red has just been feeling down. Alright, so Red tries a new approach. Alright, I can't really get anywhere inland, or else I'm going to be stopped. So what if I tried going out into the world? Alright, so Red sets up a couple of voyages going this way, and this way. And Red is going to see what they find. Alright, so our first voyage, go through here, whoa. Red is going, and Red discovers this land here, sets up a colony, right? And then we have our other expedition going this way, where Red sails in between these islands and lands right here. They set up a pretty sizable colony. Alright, and then Red goes this way and ends up out on this little peninsula. And they also set up a colony, right? So Red is doing a lot, right? And news of what is out here, right, what Red has discovered, spreads inward. It spreads across this land. Everyone wants to know, wow, everyone wants to know what's up, what's going on with this. Right, and the description given of one of the colonies sounds a bit familiar to Brown, right? Sounds like a familiar climate. So Brown expands down south, sends out a little crew, and they eventually stumble across Red's colony. Right, so they didn't end up on a new island, they ended up on the same one. Right, but Red's gained a pretty strong foothold here. Done a lot of expanding. Alright, so this is crazy news. Brown tells everyone Red is ashamed, right? But Red's not giving up this colony, right? Red just thought he found a new world, but maybe he didn't. But who knows about these other colonies? Alright, maybe they could hold out to be something big. We get some more forts, some more expansion, and Red finds out that's just another island. Red is going 2-0. 0-2, whatever. 2-0. Right, Red expands along this island. Yeah, they go. Expand north. Right, but one day, when a voyage down here goes around, right, they're blown off by a storm. Right, they're out for sea at days. They think they're never going to find nothing. And they end up landing over here. over here in this area. Right, they set up colony here. It was meant to be a small fort, right? When they eventually stop here, they return home, right? They learn about this land down here. It could just be another island. Alright, but what if it's not? Anyways, we're gonna see the emergence of a new country down here. What color? What's cooler? What's cooler? We're gonna make this. We're gonna make this dark gray. Right, we see the emergence of a dark gray mountain country. That doesn't remind me of anything. Alright, basically all of this down here is eventually explored. So is this. Alright, let me get these dark grays. They're coming up in. And they do a decent amount of expanding down south along here. And they set up their capital right over here. Yeah, so this is a pretty sizable country here. I think it's comparable to the size of Turquoise. Right, yeah, they hold the mouth of the river. Which, I mean, I don't know. If they build like a dam or something, right, Brown's gonna lose all that water. They're gonna get cooked. Murked. Alright, anyways. Right, Red does some more expanding here. And they set up a full-time colony. Colony right out in the middle here. Middle of the ocean. Alright, and then these colonies, they expand more. Right, eventually they get this whole island. And then they go to mainland. And, you wanna know what they discover? You wanna know what they see? Another country in their way. God. So yeah, we got this country here. It's a new one, their capital, right down in the south. And then they see these people, right? We see these people who are coming out in their shores, and they're like, yeah, who are you guys? And, you know, Red's asking the same question. Who are you guys? So this land was, you know, it didn't have any civilized people. You know, it was all barbaric. Like the people back home. As these people, they get to know each other, they get to trade in, yada yada yada. And, you know, these guys are telling them about how there's, you know, a lot of islands over here. There's also a lot of countries, right? A lot of trade here. Right here's a lot of countries and things. Alright, how are these guys all at peace? These guys, like, all gotta hate each other. Right, but then they get news. So they're right here. They're discovering more countries down in the south. Right, like, alright, I mean, it's just one, you know? And they go on another expedition. Oh, hey, there's more. I don't know what to call. Whoa! I don't know what color to use. Nah. Right, they're spinning down here. They're looking around, and they're just like, wow, you know, there's a lot of countries down here. Some are like teeny tiny, you know, only one island, and then some are big. Yeah, they have a lot of influence. And, you know, some aren't very big at all. So, yeah, Red is basically hearing about all this. About all those countries over there. And they're just thinking, wow. I mean, just wow. That sounds like a lot of free land. Alright, there's no one else who's doing any of this who's even here to stop me at all. Alright, so they set up a bit more permanent colonies. Alright, but then we see Lavender. Lavender's hopping on this train. They send out their own expedition. Alright, they set up their own island colonies. Right, they do some more expanding down here, and they eventually find this red colony down here. Alright, this one which has been gatekept the location. Because honestly, Red didn't even know, it was so far away. How do you expect to get there? Really? What they did was they go over to this island and just go out in this way. Alright, so yeah. We're really seeing a lot more expanding right now, right? So many more countries are being discovered down in the south. And we got this dark green one. So yeah, really a lot. And then eventually, as you guys get out, and they really explore this whole island region. Right, it's pretty tropical. Even though if you think, up there it's cold, so down here's got to be cold too, right? Nah, it's really tropical. Yeah, so Red is really going, They don't have anyone to stop them. Stop them from getting all these rich colonies down here. I mean, sure, there's like a couple countries here and there. But, I mean, it's not a lot, There's not a lot of anyone down here. Not a lot of any civilized people down here. So, yeah, Red is just, like, grabbing up territory from these countries who are too big to defend. They take that. They take this. They go as far as to take over an entire country. Right? They want to be able to connect up their southern colonies. They take over 2 countries. That's how good Red's feeling. Alright, yeah, I should probably get capitals going for all these now. Oh yeah, I think, yeah, probably like right there. Capital there, yeah. Alright, so Red is devious. Red is just taking everything they can. Right, and then, we got Lavender. Lavender wants to hop on this too. So they go down here, and then they discover some land in here. Set up another colony. And, alright, Red has already done a lot of expeditions down here. But they can't set up a good colony. Because a country's in the way. Right now, this is one of the bigger countries here. Alright, they've actually done their own sailing and their own exploring of that land over there. Right, so what Red did is they came in. And they just took over the whole country. No one was going to stop them. But, right, when word came back home that country had been taken over, of course he got Olive hopping on him, like, alright, dude, why'd you do that? And Guacamole was like, yeah, that's kind of a repeat of us, That's what you did to us. Right, so they're getting a lot of backlash. So they do a smart move. Or they say, we'll control the region, but we'll make them autonomous. So what that really means is they said, all right, yeah, we'll protect the land, protect it. All right, but they're really just out here controlling it. Alright, this is meant to be like borders here. You know, like the red shows who it's being controlled by. Yeah, it's being controlled by red. And they realize this is just like an infinite money glitch. Right? Infinite colony glitch. So they go over it, they take over more countries, just under the same premise, right? That, oh yeah, we're just trying to protect them, you know? When we take them over, we're gonna make them our protectorates. Or we're gonna give them autonomy. So it's like they're still independent, even though they're not. Right, but then we do some more expanding. Lavender and red, they realize the value. They realize the value of this island over here. So they both do a lot. They eventually meet each other, right? This island gives a lot of riches. None wants to give it up, you know? No one wants to give up their claims on this rich island. So what they both do is they go to war. Right, they go in and they start fighting, right? Lavender comes in through the mountains. Right, red pushes in this way, but they have a surprise attack down here. And they eventually just take this over, and they take the rest of their colony. Right, honestly, red was saying this isn't too bad. There's like nothing else over there. Bad news, red. But that is going to be the end. That's going to be the end of this one. Right, so I'm gonna paint all the countries who are now. Oh. We have like yellow. We have dark green. And we have lime. The lime no longer exists. Rest in peace, lime. We got those. We have this new gray country, or dark gray, whatever you want to call it. And then I think we'll put above countries, right, that are being controlled. Just, I think that's going to be fair, right? It'll be a marker. Yes. Must. Oh. Nope. So we're going to take this one over here. Which one was it? Oh, I think it was actually this one. Yeah, so these are going to mark who's being controlled in another country. Yeah, it's actually really filling up now. Wow. Wow. There's a lot of colors. I didn't think there'd be this little. Yeah, I thought I have more to work with. Wow. Just wow, you know? It doesn't even look like there's a lot here. Yeah, alright. If you think so. But yeah, it's gonna be the end of this episode. So yeah. Bye-bye.